So here we go. We're going to start at the head, making sure that the rest of your body stays still. So you might want to pack a little bit of air down into your tummy. Maybe make some small fists. We're just going to move the neck. So we're going to bring the chin and roll it down to the sternum and feel the neck segmentally move throughout the whole of the spine. Then from there, we'll rotate the chin along your collarbone so you're looking into your right armpit. From there, just roll the head across as if the right ear is coming down into the back pocket. Trace a line across the ceiling with your nose until your left ear is in your left back pocket. Roll over so you're looking down at your left armpit and your chin is touching your collarbone. And rotate it back to the start. Now we'll do that 2 more times round. Rotate to look into your armpit. Rolling over. Nose across the ceiling. Left ear and left back pockets. Look into left armpit. Roll it back to the sternum. Compensation patterns as you roll towards the left armpit. Any movement of the spine, any hiking of the shoulders. We rotate across, any pinching on the right side of the neck, and again, any movement of the spine. So extend to the ceiling, just through the neck, not through the hips and the lower back. Left ear into left back pocket. Looking down towards that armpit. Trace it so it's along the sternum, and the mouth should be relaxed and closed. Your thoracic spine, which is part of the spine which attaches from around the sternum area up to around the start of the neck, the bit where all your ribs attach into. So here we go. Imagine that your pelvis is locked down in concrete, so nothing can move at all. And then take your hands and place them on your sternum like this. Now I'm going to start teaching this sideways on so you can see my spine. So without my pelvis moving, I just roll my sternum down towards my pelvis and my back begins to curve. From there I keep that curve without my pelvis following. I rotate to my right. From there I keep that rotation and I just extend the spine so I side bend and bring my right shoulder down into my right back pocket. From there, without my pelvis coming forward, I make a lovely smooth arch through the whole of the back. Then we reverse that. I take my left shoulder blade into my left back pocket to side bend to the left. I rotate and flex down, and then I carry around to the front. So again, in that direction, we rotate to the right. Extend and side bend to the right. Lift the sternum up onto the ceiling, making a lovely smooth curve. Left shoulder and left back pocket. Rotate over to come round. In essence, it's a circle. Things to look out for. As we rotate, the pelvis doesn't follow. As we side bend, there's no pinching in the back. As we extend, it's not just the neck moving and the hips aren't moving forwards. As we retrace to the other side, no pinching. As we flex and rotate, no following of the pelvis. As we come back to center and roll back up. 3 one way, 3 the other. Shoulder blades are strange joints. They're very different to all the other joints in there. I guess you'd call them not a real joint. They're held on by muscles. They glide up and down the spine along the rib cage. So this is how we're going to do it. Hands by your side. This is the easy version. We have, first of all, lifting the shoulder up. Then from there, you're going to take your shoulder blade and you're going to move it forwards, keeping that rest underneath the shoulder blades. From there, it drops down. So it comes back to neutral, but it drops down in the socket. Then we pull it back. Then we shrug it back up towards the ear. So it's in essence done a circle this way. So let's do that again. It comes up, forwards, down, back, up, ready to go again. Compensations. No neck movement, no elbow bending. From there, as it comes forwards, no moving of the elbow to make it come forwards. No rotating of the spine to make it come forwards, just that shoulder blade. From there, we pull it down again, no side bending of the spine. Then we pull it back, no rotation of the spine. So 3 one way, and then you're going to reverse it. And you're going to do exactly the same, forwards, up, backwards, down. And then that becomes your shoulder. You do it on both sides as well. This is for the glenohumeral joints, which is where your arm, your humerus, attaches into your shoulder blade in a place called the glenoid fossa. So it sits in like that, and it's a ball and socket joint. So it's got a lot of movement in here. One of the more trickier ones of these, but follow along. Hand by your side, thumb facing forwards. Again, Paximarian, make everything strong. It begins by rotating the palm up, and it comes across the body to horizontal. Elbow straight, no rotation of the spine. From there, you're going to lose my hand, but I'm going to take a little step back so you can see it. You come up, so your bicep is next to your ear, your thumb is pointing backwards, and your palm is pointing inwards. Again, from here, elbows straight, no side bending of the neck, no hiking up of the shoulder, just lovely smiley collarbones. From there, you rotate your palm outwards. Now, from there, without anything moving here, you start to draw a circle back. Keep rotating that hand, because at the end of it, when it's behind you, you want to end up with your palm facing up towards the ceiling, like you're reaching for a baton in a 100-meter relay race. And from there, bring it all the way back down, fully rotated in so knuckles are facing the thigh. Again, do it again. Rotate, palm facing up. Compensation patterns here, bending the elbow and trying to cheat it with your whole body. From there, we come up to the side. Space between the shoulders, elbows straight, bring it in close to the ear, but don't bend the neck. From there, rotate that palm out, and that rotation should come all the way from that humerus and not just from the wrist. From there, we start to draw it back. This is normally where we start to see coupling of this bit. So either people will follow back or they will kind of move out of the way. So this all stays exactly where it is. And then we start to rotate back. The next pause position is this. Compensation here is normally to sag, to make it look higher. So keep your chest lifted, that arm pulled into the side behind you, and then rotate back through, ready to go again. 3 times round, and then you start to smooth off the edges a little bit. All the way around, and there should be no pain. And on the other side. Time for the elbow. So the elbow joint, we're looking at 2 things. How it flexes and extends, like a hinge joint, but also how it rotates, which actually happens just up here at a bone called the radius. So you're going to take yourself a little ball. You're going to place your arm down by your side, and you can take a knuckle or a hand and just place it against your bicep here. Because this movement, I'm going to step forwards a little bit, this movement is taking place below the elbow, not up at the top of the humerus. So this is just like a little gauge to make sure it stays where it is. Arm stays directly under shoulder. So we're going to start with the palm fully supinated, which means rotating so the palm is facing out. From there, keep that full supination and flex up. Now you'll find that your hand is slightly outside of your elbow, which is just the normal joint mechanics happening there. From there, we rotate in, which brings my hand back in line or slightly inside my elbow, and then we extend all the way out. Again, rotate out. Compensations you will see here is that the whole body starts to rotate, so we want it just at that elbow. We flex up. What you might see here is the arm starting to move up, so we want to keep it locked in place. When it's got to full flexion, we rotate in, making sure it's come from the elbow and not the wrist, which is where the ball comes in a little bit useful. From there, we extend down to fully straight without ditching the shoulder forwards. That is the elbow joint. The wrist joint. There's various ways we can do this. We can do it by balancing a pen lightly on the inside or the outside, or dropping it. But the idea is that the forearm stays still with this, and it just happens down here at the wrist joint. Now, really hard to do this one strict because you still motion usually from the fingertips or from the whole of the elbow. So here we go. I quite like holding it to start with because I want to see no movement coming from here. So I'm just locking that in place. And my hand is like a shovel. By that I mean I don't want you to have finger joints. It just becomes one solid piece from the wrist down to the fingers. And we have little carpal joints in the wrist, 2 rows of them. And in essence, that's what we're mobilizing here. So keeping that elbow in, keeping that wrist in. First of all, we're going to flex up. That is all from the wrist joint. From there, you're going to start to come out to the side and back to neutral. So this is called ulnar deviation, which means it's coming outside of the midline there. Then from there, we're going to flex all the way down. Again, this is one of those times you'll see fingers start to bend. So it's just from the wrist joints. And then we come up to radial deviation there, elbow stays glued in, and it's just from that wrist again, everything parallel through the hands, no fingers moving. So here we go. We go up into extension, back to horizontal, which is called ulnar deviation, down all the way here, and back up, keeping things horizontal with radial deviation. When you've done it 3 times, slowly one way around, making sure it's just come from the wrist, we reverse it and go 3 times the other way, and do on both hands if you want. Now this part of the articular routine is probably the hardest bit to teach. And the reason is there's so many other joints that can start to compensate at this point. So while you can do this standing, I think to learn it, probably staying down on the floor is the best place to do it. So I will guide you through. You're going to lie on your side, and you're going to bring your knees up to 90, and you're going to make sure your back is lovely and straight. So there's going to be ever such a slight dip in on the lower back, cushion under your heads, and then we want to brace all the other areas that could compensate while we're trying to get movement purely in this hip. So the first thing you're going to do is you can reach over and grasp your hands together like that and squeeze them tight. So that's going to start to lock in your upper body. Also, if you want to, you could just take one hand slightly over the top and reach, which is going to brace your upper back from being able to rotate out. The choice is yours. Then we're going to take a little ball. I've got a little rubber ball here that you can roll up a couple of socks or something. You're going to place it behind your knee and you're going to squeeze that, and you're not going to let that ball slip. So now this is locked on. This knee's up to 90, so it's going to help stabilize the pelvis when we start to extend the hip. Just want you to lightly put a brace in your tummy. And this is how we're going to do the motion. So to begin with, we do hip flexion. So you move this hip joint, which brings your knee up towards your chest without your spine curving in. So it's just that thigh moving. From there, without your pelvis moving at all, we're just going to open our right hip. From there, you're going to try and keep your knee where it is. You're going to rotate this thigh bone in, which will mean that your heel comes slightly up. From there, keep it where it is and just start tracing that hip back. And we will get into hip extension, and then bring it back while in extension back to parallel. So the compensations, and actually you're going to see the compensations better if I give you a butt size view. Compensations, as you bring the hip up, people like to flex it, because it means if you flex your spine, your knee goes higher. From there, as we open up, to get this higher, people then like to move their pelvis and drop it back. But I want you to keep this pelvis where it is, and then open your thigh. Imagine this is against a wall, and you can't go through the wall. It's just thigh bone moving. From here, as you rotate, knees start to drop so that the heel looks like it's higher. But if you can keep that there and just rotate the thigh, I've only got a little motion, but it's pure motion of that hip. Now as we extend backwards, this is where people's backs start to arch. So people extend back, which then makes it look like the hip is going back. But I want you to hold on to your hands strong, brace the front of your tummy so that as you extend, you might feel your bottom work, you might feel your tummy work, and then you'll feel a stretch on the front of the hip as opposed to a compression in the lower back. And then slowly bring it through, keep it tummy tight so it's just thigh bone, not the whole pelvis tucking. Now, that's one way, 3 times round. Then we do it the other way. So back in position again, all set up, and we just reverse it. So we extend straight back through the hip. We open it so the shin stays parallel with the floor. So it's not here yet, it's parallel with the floor. Then from there, knee stays where it is as that heel drops down. Keep the movement coming round. Close the gate, ready to repeat. So we extend, keeping the tummy tight. Parallel shin to the floor as we open it up. Heel starts to drop as we bring that hip round, ready to close the gate and repeat. 3 either way, change other leg. Your knee joint is clever little joint. We always think of it as being a pure hinge, but actually it's not. There's a little bit of rotation in there, which is incredibly important, and if you're missing that, you'll know about it. But it is subtle. We're not talking about a lot of range, but just a small part. So this is how we're going to get that. You're going to place one leg in front. If you need to stabilise yourself with the wall, that's absolutely fine. And you're going to pull your foot up. Now the reason you're going to pull your foot up is because as you pull it up, we lock this joint together where the shin comes into the foot. And then now if I was to move the foot, it's going to move up into the shin. Or if I move the shin, it's going to reflect down in the foot. Whereas if we take it off that, I can move the foot and I don't need any movement up into the shin. And as we're trying to get the knee joint up here, I want this foot just to be a dial as opposed to a driver of movement. So here we go. Get a little bit of balance, take one leg out, keep it slightly soft at the knee. That's important because if you fully lock it out, there's no rotation. The bones kind of lock together at that point. So from there, keeping that foot pulled up without your thigh moving. So you might want to place a hand on here just to get a feel. You're going to rotate that tibia, that shin bone out. From there, you pull it all the way into your bottom. From there, without the thigh moving, you rotate the tibia in, so the foot ends up pointing slightly more towards the midline. You extend it, but not quite so straight. Again, we rotate out, pull in, rotate in, near here. So I'll show you at the front, rotate out, and in, rotate in, and near the out. The important thing is this. If you see the whole thing moving, we're not getting rotation at the knee, we're getting rotation at the hip. The other compensation is if the foot's a bit floppy, we get movement at the foot, but nothing at the shin. So put them up, and you're going to do 3 both ways. So then you can rotate in, come back, rotate out, nearly extend, rotate in, back, out, nearly extend. Both legs, 3 each side. Nearly there. The last one, ankles. How we do the ankles is a little bit like the shoulder joint, a little bit like the hip joint. We want to get a big circle. And a little bit like the wrist, we don't want too much toe action going on here because we're looking at this joint here as opposed to all these joints down there. Now, this is what we're going to do. And you can do this, actually let's do this sitting down, even though you can do this standing up. And the reason I like this sitting down is because if you cross your leg over, you can wedge your shin. So now we want to get rotation at the ankle without it feeding up into the shin bone. So these can monitor, but also slightly compress to restrict any rotation coming up through the shin. And here we go, nice and slowly. You start to flex the foot up. Then we're going to go to the midline next. So it starts to come across, drawing a big circle. It points down, comes across the other way, so the sole is pointed more towards the outside wall. It's not a massive movement. Then you come all the way up again. So we call that inversion, plantar flexion, eversion, dorsiflexion. Now, you'll find if you've had ankle sprains or stuff, there's bits where you want to skip over it, or some sugary bits. Go slowly through those. Those are the areas you really want to concentrate on, making sure that the shin is not following suit. 3 one way, 3 the other.